Right. Okay, usual problem. Good afternoon, everybody. This is just a bit of result from having probably too much time in aeroplanes. Certainly the flight to get here from Brisbane took a long time. So here we go. This is not really meant to be an advert for the route aggregation document I talked about the last lightning talk, but it's kind of covers the same introduction, but I've just stepped on a little bit further to show you something interesting. So anyway, the route aggregation documents, well, the links tried to do this for the membership, even though the members voted for it, it just didn't work. Mike Hughes can tell you more about that. Routing working group at RIPE then took this a step further, so along with Mike Hughes and Rob Evans from UKerner, we produced this document with a lot of good feedback from the industry at large on what good aggregation recommendations should be. So this has now been published as RIPE 399. That was done right at the 2nd or 3rd of January this year, so that's finally out. Discusses the history of aggregation, the causes of deaggregation, impacts on the global routing system, the available solutions, and puts forward some recommendations for ISPs. I'm not going to cover any of the historical stuff, but I'll put the recommendations up. Basically, trying to encourage people to announce the initial allocation as a single entity where possible. Try and make sure that subsequent allocations are aggregated if they are suitably bitwise aligned. I mean, they're not always that in that case, but sometimes they are. Third one is prudent subdivision of aggregates for multi-homing. So this is not the case of, ooh, well, I got my 32 Class Cs from whichever registry and we just spray them out any interface and hope something works, as happens a lot of times. It's trying to actually figure out how you're meant to subdivide. Lots of BGP enhancements have been around. It all applies to IPv6 as well. Now, the new stuff, trying to look at some of the deaggregation that's going on the internet. Well, the CIDR report has been around for a long time. Tony Bates started that all off, probably in the mid-90s, I think it was 94, 95, he started that off. Jeff Houston now maintains all that. It's a very, very extensive suite of reports and tools. You can pretty much find out anything about the BGP table you could want. I started off the routing report that I do in '99, so I split the CIDR report basically into regional internet registry regions, basically so we could find out what's happening in each part of the world. So one of the summary things that I do is produce something called maximum aggregation, which is basically aggregating by origin AS. So it does also mean I ignore any traffic engineering efforts, but it does show me roughly what the routing table could be if everybody really aggregated back to the origin AS. And I do it on a global basis as well as a regional internet registry basis. And, well, a few weeks ago, I got an email from Simon Leinen saying, can you add in this deaggregation factor? So show the routing table size over the aggregated size, and we can map how this goes. And I thought, yeah, well, I could put that in. It's going to be pretty consistent over the years. I was wrong. It's not. It's getting bigger, and it's getting bigger quite quickly. If we look at the regional internets, I've called it, so roughly North America and Europe. So the global table, 210,000 prefixes. The global average deaggregation factor about 1.85. North America's 103,000 prefixes contribute to the table, so 1.69, which is all fine and good. RIPE region, 44,000 prefixes, about 1.53. That's all nice. Next slide is not so nice. Asia Pacific, 47,000 prefixes, but 2.48 deaggregation. Africa, 3,000 prefixes, 2.58. Caribbean, Latin America, 14,000 prefixes, 3.4. So 3.4 times more prefixes than they could really be announcing if they decided to aggregate. So making it a pretty picture, it becomes that. The yellow line is how the internet has been basically deaggregating since February 1999, so it was about 1.3 back then. It's about 1.8 now, as I just said. But which one? The blue line, that is the Asia-Pacific region. Look at all the roughness around 2000, 2001, the time of the dot-com bust. Something really strange was all going on there within the AP region. The The topmost line is LACNIC. That's Latin America, Caribbean. Of course, LACNIC appeared or started about, what was it, 4 years ago? So that's when I first got data, so rapidly deaggregating. And the green one is Afrinic. They started almost 3 years ago now, and they were actually started off at the global average, and they've just shot up at a high speed. So I'm all a little bit worried about it all. So I've probably running out of time, but I've got some of the suspects here. Like number one there, TE data could, well, they're announcing 237. They could save 231, so end up announcing 6 if they tried. So Nile Online, similar case, could only really announce 4. Etisalat in Morocco, similar savings possible. Asia Pacific, I didn't steal this slide from Todd, I promise. But I almost jumped out of my skin when I saw Todd's slide of the maximally affected from the Taiwan quake, and this one. Look at the first top 5 or 6 ASs there. They're the same ones who were maximally affected by the Taiwan quake.
Are you suggesting that deaggregation causes outages?
I don't know what I'm suggesting, but it was just amazing to see the same suspects there. Satyam Infoway, VSNL, ChinaNet, Bharti, Reliance, and so it goes. But look at the savings that are possible. It's absolutely amazing. SIFI have basically decided, what the heck, we'll just throw out all /24s and everybody else can suffer for it. North America, well, we've got our usual friends there, Covad and Cable One, and a few others. Latin America, Uninet's been deaggregated like that for a long time. And various other ones there. Again, major savings possible. Europe, notice most of these service providers tend to be the newer ones. The long-term old favorites don't really appear on that list apart from Unet 702. So, but otherwise it tends to be the newer ones. So observations, well, I don't know, I just think there's this newer gulf, or big gulf appearing between the older and the newer internet. Remember that the newer internet is growing rapidly, as a few folks have been saying. And once these guys get as big as the internet is in this part of the world and in Europe, yes, I really don't really want to try and think about it. You can buy lots more memory from the router for the routers and so forth. The RIPE 399 document is only a recommendation. Hoping that the regional internet registries will actually point people at it. I will certainly point people at it. There's lots of training available, at least tutorials and so forth available. Hopefully, people will actually make more use of this to try and figure out what to do. Final slide. Make it your good BGP practice document. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Chris Woodfield, Internet. Were those deaggregation measurements done before or after the earthquake?
Oh, those were done, well, the day before yesterday. Those like very fresh numbers. But the graph that you saw, that's gone all the way back to the time they are started.
Okay, so it's safe to assume that most of that deaggregation, particularly in Asia Pac, was in place before the earthquake then?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Dana Blair, Cisco. Given that some deaggregation is probably unavoidable, is there any idea of setting a tolerable limit for this ratio?
Well, I've played around with Jeff Houston's data from the SIDE report and his BGP report, and I can see about 15% of deaggregation is necessary for traffic engineering. That's a guess. But setting a limit, I mean, I don't know how you do that. I just see the global norm, and I just hope that most people can get somewhere close to what the global norm is.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Philip.